It's now down to two, that it's Shapiro or Walz. And in a world where nothing matters more than Pennsylvania, it's my job to put you on the spot. This is Shapiro, right?
Well, that would be my pick, but I'm not running for president. But yeah, Pennsylvania has 19 electoral votes. Minnesota has 10, and if you're a competitive Democrat, you're going to win Minnesota. So what do you get? I heard several Democratic officials today say, well, Walz is America's dad. Well, I happen to be in Virginia. I know Tim Kaine well. He's a great guy. And when he was picked, he was called America's dad, and we know how that turned out. So I would say Shapiro, but what do I know?
Well, we also have heard some criticism of the governor, if you will, some of it coming from labor. UAW President Shawn Fain, for example, wasn't in favor of him being tapped. We also know that he has sparked some criticism for his handling of college protests over Israel and Gaza. How many voters does he risk alienating? And is the number he could bring in larger than that for sure? I
think the latter. He could bring far more voters in than he would lose. Let me tell you something. I've learned this over many, many decades of watching vice presidential selections. If Mother Teresa were still alive, she's St. Teresa now, Mother Teresa were still alive, she were right here, and she were picked as the nominee for vice president, we'd have 50 groups tomorrow telling us in one way or another how awful she was. That's just the way it goes. All your enemies are going to come out and tell about that time that they had a problem with you. This is, and especially in the Democratic Party, my God, it's a factionalized party.
Well, I guess it's good Mother Teresa never went there, because one of these folks will be picked imminently. Larry, what is this rollout going to look like, and how important are the optics that will surround it? We keep hearing about a Twitter video. I guess that's the way you do things now. But Kamala Harris needs to seize on the better part of a week to harness that news cycle before Chicago.
No, you're absolutely right. She's going to be defined by her vice presidential pick. And people do find this to be amazing, but it's absolutely true. People don't follow vice presidents, even when they're historic, as clearly Kamala Harris was and is. Multiracial, a woman, first woman, and so on. They don't follow. So they have no idea really where she stands. They're inferring that she has the same positions as Biden, more or less, but they don't hold those positions against her because they know vice presidents don't make decisions. So this is really important, and how this new vice presidential candidate comes across will say more about Kamala Harris than it will say about the vice presidential nominee.
Well, whether it is Governor Shapiro or Governor Walz or potentially a surprise candidate, everybody's going to look to the difference it makes in a very small number of states. We know this. The blue wall, Minnesota, I guess you could say, is adjacent. Pennsylvania, of course, is part of it. How directly does one individual translate across those lines, even if they don't ultimately make the huge difference in policy? Is the prevailing notion that they could bring everybody along a good one, Larry?
My study of elections and the vice presidency strongly suggests that if they have any impact at all, it's in their own home state. They may have additional impact in another state that they have close ties to. Lyndon Johnson didn't just carry Texas for John F. Kennedy. He carried Louisiana right next door because he'd also taken care of Louisiana in various ways. So that's it. You know, how many other people in the country voted for John F. Kennedy because Lyndon Johnson was on the ticket? 3 months before Johnson became president, a majority of Americans couldn't identify Lyndon Johnson. So again, people don't follow vice presidents. That's why this is so critical.
You know, it's funny, as you say that, it dawns on me that J.D. Vance is actually going to be chasing this new ticket, kind of stalking them in 4 of the cities they are set to visit over the next week, bracketing the new ticket. If nobody cares about the new running mate, I wonder what they think about the running mate that was announced a couple of weeks ago, because MAGA Inc., the pro-Trump super PAC, is framing Josh Shapiro as, quote, wants boys in girls' sports, unquote. Is that the kind of stuff we're going to hear this week?
Absolutely. Every petty thing you can think of. I'm not saying it's not a serious issue, but that is not on the plate of massive, major issues that will determine the fate of the world and the country. But yeah, look at what Donald Trump's been doing. He's used every nasty name he could think of. He's trying to find one that works, and he will eventually. That's one thing for sure. But that's what we'll get. That's what we'll get, and that's mainly what Donald Trump will do for the rest of the campaign.
Well, Larry, what we got from the former president today was repeatedly accusations that the decline in markets we saw was the so-called Kamala crash. To what extent does the person representing the incumbent party in an election have, whether or not it is warranted, blame for what happens in the stock market?
Well, in the stock market, I'd say very, very little, because there are so many more important aspects to the economy than whether the market's going up or down, even if it's dramatic. Also, we don't know whether this is going to continue. It could be over next week or over long before people start voting at the end of September. So that's less important than inflation, which has dominated people's view of the economy and been key in their harsh judgment, really, of Joe Biden. Will that carry over to Kamala Harris? To some degree, but again, common sense tells people that vice presidents don't make decisions, right? Hubert Humphrey didn't run the war in Vietnam, so he wasn't held as accountable as Lyndon Johnson would have been had Johnson run for re-election in 1968. You all remember that, right? That was just a few years ago.